206. Let's get to 31, which came out in 2016, done by Zombie. Stars Malcolm McDowell, Richard Brake, Sherry Moon Zombie, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, Kevin Jackson, mainly people who are in all of Zombie's films. And the synopsis is five carnival workers are kidnapped and held hostage in an abandoned, hellish compound where they are forced to participate in a violent game, the goal of which is to survive 12 hours against a gang of sadistic clowns. So, this was one of the first Rob Zombie films that I saw. I got it on Blu ray, just blind bought it because I was curious about Zombie's films, wanted to see what he was all about, and this was only my second time watching it. I know this is considered to be him having done Lords of Salem before this. I guess this was his, not return to form in terms of quality, but just returning to his roots, I guess, stylistically, because this is pretty much in the same vein, or might as well be in the same trilogy as Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, because it's the same setting, the same era, the same group of actors, the same type of story, except the actors who played the killers in the other films are now, for the most part, the victims and or survivors. Which I don't mind a movie like this. I don't mind that it feels like the others. It's just Zombie being Zombie, doing the things that he seems to like the most, which is shock value and a lot of gore in a survival-esque sort of setting. And both times that I've seen it, it's about at the same level, would be on par with most of his other films. It is, in some ways, refreshing to see a movie like this that, considering it's not connected to the others, it's all on its own. It's a very self-contained, wild gore fest of a film that we don't really see that often anymore, especially done to any sort of artistic quality or impact. Because even people who might watch this and not like it, I feel like it would still stick with you. It's hard to forget. Getting into it though, the opening in black and white with that long monologue, I don't mind that. I think it looks good. I like how it's shot, but the monologue overall just goes on too long, and I like that it's in your face and it makes you uneasy. I just feel like it could have been condensed somewhat. It has a lot of signature Rob Zombie character designs and production design. For example, probably the most iconic is the Nazi henchman guy. That character design is insane. The look of Malcolm McDowell and his wife, who are dressed up as these almost like Marie Antoinette era style costumes with the powdered wigs and the face makeup. There's the killer couple, let's say, and in particular the female character or the girlfriend who has an almost Harley Quinn look, but it's different enough to where it doesn't just feel like a blatant ripoff. It's its own design. One of, I think, the best scene in the whole movie, because it is really Rob Zombie going full anger mode, sadistic, bloody, crazy, is the scene the survivors, or the players, let's call them, are stuck in that room with the killer clowns who all have the chainsaws. And there's a point where they're essentially having a sword fight, but with chainsaws. And the chainsaws are flying all over the screen. The blood is flying everywhere. Like, it's really unbelievable to watch. And even though I'd seen it before, I was just thinking, this is so demented, but amazing at the same time. There's also one of, or I'd say the grossest scene in the film is when the main group of characters find the dinner table and they start eating, and then they realize one of their lost friends is the table itself, and they've been eating right off of him, and it's really like, oh, it's so disgusting, but it's very effective. And that, I remember when I first saw it, that blew me away in terms of how grotesque it was. But then when I saw it this time, I had forgotten about it, and when it came, I was like, oh no, I remember this now. The original ambush at night when the main group is captured and they suddenly find themselves stuck in this hellhole. The character of Doomhead is quite something, especially when you first meet him where he's having sex with a girl. That scene is classic Rob Zombie, in my opinion. And we do see him giving that monologue at the beginning, but you don't really know his place in the story at that point in time. A few small criticisms. I do find that even though it's fairly short, it's only 90-ish minutes, it does feel a little long by the end. That third act drags somewhat, and it's not as visually interesting to me, and I feel like there's a point where I'm ready for it to be over. Since we have seen most of this kind of thing before from Rob Zombie, and just the overall story beats of the movie become somewhat repetitive. There's only so much gore and craziness that we can take before it just all runs together and it's not impacting anything anymore. Also was not crazy about the freeze framing, which he does, for some reason, he does consistently throughout, which you can see him do that throughout a lot of his movies, but I feel like in this one, it's the most prominently used or the most consistently used. It didn't really add much, and it became, after a while, it just became distracting. And it could have lost all those freeze frames and would not have hurt the narrative or the style or just the overall quality in any way. So, in the end, this is one that I can always go back to and throw on if I'm just in the mood for some quick, in-your-face Rob Zombie, and I don't have to worry about watching the whole trilogy or breaking things up. This is just in its own little crazy world, which is cool. I doubt it will be the one to win over non-Rob Zombie fans or new audiences, I would say. This is not the one to start with, in my opinion, unless you're already a big horror fan. So that one is a heavy 3.5 out of 5.